Welcome to Perf Damage.
Welcome.
This is the show where we talk about the secret histories of Hollywood.
And the secret histories of film restoration. Okay, not really.
But not all the time.
We do tell you stories of film restoration, but not today.
No, today we're going to do something a little different. In fact, I think I'm going to start it out with a little quiz.
A quiz?
Yes. I'm going to ask you guys a question. What do Jurassic Park, Superman, Lord of the Rings, Inception, Jason and the Argonauts, and Rocket Men from the Moon all have in common? And
Anybody?
I don't hear anything.
They all have amazing miniature practical effects.
Yes, miniature practical effects.
And that's what we're going to talk about today. Miniatures have been the cornerstone of filmmaking since the silent era. And while you've probably heard of some of the big name and special effects, we're here today to spotlight two brothers who shaped the industry across nearly a century of innovation.
So, to hear about the Lydecker brothers, the godfathers of special effects, stay tuned. Oh no, not again. Hey, movie lovers, I'm Adam.
And I'm Charlotte.
And welcome to Perf Damage.
We're a movie-obsessed husband and wife team who work in the film industry. I oversee film restoration at the oldest studio in Hollywood.
And I bring the inside track from film development and production. And we love to explore the hidden tales of movies past and present.
So join us for a cinematic journey like no other.
From classic gems to examining the art of the double feature, this is Perf Damage.
Popcorn popped, wine at the ready. Let's press play. All right, so we got a lot of things that we're going to talk about today, but there is one thing I have to tell you about that's going to come a little bit later in the video that Adam really wanted me to put at the start of the video, but I said no.
I did, because it's a lot of fun.
It is. But I said no. We're going to reward the people that stick around for the whole thing. Or the people that want to just fast forward to the end. Fine. Here is the time code you're going to want to check out. There is a very fun video. It's over here, Adam.
I pointed that way. Did you not see that?
He understands editing now, guys.
No,
he does.
I was just a little faster on the uptake this time.
He understands. There's a video. It's a little comp. It's a little hilarious video about lessons I've learned while working on the Republic Pictures serials. It's humorous. You might want to check it out. That's all we'll say. Anyhow, next. Now back to our regular programming.
So, Charlotte, when we're talking about the origins of special effects, practical special effects, we think about it in periods, like eras, right?
Right.
And each era influences the era after it. First era really all started with Willis O'Brien and his stop motion work on King Kong.
Right.
Like that movie was groundbreaking. Willis O'Brien is credited as being the guy who invented the 3D stop motion technique. And so all of the people that came in the generation after them had seen King Kong, and that was what they were influenced by.
Right.
The people that came after him, and these are the names that pretty much everybody that's into film immediately recognizes, like Ray Harryhausen. Ray Harryhausen became the top-of-the-line stop-motion guy after Willis O'Brien's work.
Right, and if you don't recognize the name, you recognize the style. You've seen people fighting them,
the skeletons from Jason and the Argonaut.
You've seen the dinosaurs.
That's, and the movie that made me recognize Ray Harryhausen, his last film, 1981's Clash of the Titans.
Right.
So he was an influence on film over decades.
Right.
And
another contemporary of that era was the Jerry Anderson stuff, which was done by Derek Medding, who did all the marionette stuff for like Thunderbirds Are Go or
Right,
the
Stingray,
UFO.
yeah,
and-
all of those big. He did so many series with
Right.
with the marionettes.
Right. He also did some of the James Bond stuff.
Oh, and Superman.
Superman.
Yeah. And then so the generation after that, the people that saw Harryhausen's work and Derek Medding's work, that's the ILM period, right? Like the people that did Star Wars.
Right.
I mean, you had people like Richard Edlund, Douglas Trumbull, Joe Johnston, who became a director in his own right. You have Phil Tippett. He's now the stop motion guy, right? If you need stop motion, you go to Phil Tippett. Now we've got the modern era, the people that were influenced by them.
People like the Weta Workshop.
Yes, absolutely.
Peter Jackson doing Lord of the Rings. They did all of those bigatures on the original Lord of the Rings series where they made all the miniatures, but they called them the bigatures because they were very big models.
Right, and that's
scale
working
models.
on concepts created by the Lydeckers.
Yeah, because they wouldn't call their miniatures.
Were not
They called them
miniatures.
scale models because
Right.
they were very large,
Yes, they always.
which we'll get into.
Yes, we'll get into that. It was part of their fundamentals. They have like a list of fundamentals.
Yeah. The point that we're making here is that practical effects are still something that is being used today, and it's something that's been around for as long as filmmaking has been around.
Since the silent era.
Yeah, and then there are these two brothers, the Lydecker brothers, who revolutionized a lot of techniques that are still being used today, and yet are relatively
Unknown still. Yeah, like very few people actually will put them in that kind of line of, lineal line to today. And they were very, very influential. Like a lot of the stuff that they did influenced big filmmakers like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. We would not have Indiana Jones at all if it weren't for the Lydeckers.
That's right. And Republic Picture Studios. For example, I have a quick example for you here before you tune out and say, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Like, who are all these people?
For example, there's a Republic serial called Zorro's Fighting Legion. There is a stunt, which we are going to show you here, which if you've seen Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, this may look very familiar to you. Stunt was used in Stagecoach by John Ford.
Yeah, later that year, and it was
the
performed
same year
by the same stunt actor,
man.
right? Yakima Canutt?
Yeah. Same guy did the same stunt, this is a crazy freaking stunt.
Yeah, it's amazing that anybody would pull this off.
The stunt department at Republic Picture Studio,
Yep.
the Lydeckers miniature work, so many departments that elevated Republic Pictures
from a scrappy little B
studio, and they made their production value A-level. So today we're talking about Howard and Theodore Lydecker. They were pioneers in the field of special effects.
If you've ever been amazed by the seamless blend of reality and illusion on screen, stick around, because it all goes back to the Lydecker brothers and their unparalleled eye for detail. Let's explore how two men in the 1930s turned a small, independent studio into a visual effects powerhouse. Before we talk about the Lydeckers, we kind of have to talk a little bit about the history of Republic Pictures.
Yeah, let's set up Republic Pictures because it's important to know what Republic Pictures was before we get into who the Lydeckers were. So Republic Pictures was a Poverty Row studio. And if you're not familiar what a Poverty Row studio was, it's as it sounds. It's a studio that didn't have a lot of money.
Right. You know, they were small independent studios.
Very small.
That were able
Didn't
to
have big stars.
Yeah, and they were able to get their features on as B features in front of A pictures. Herbert J. Yates's idea was to create a super B studio.
Right. And so what he did was he took several Poverty Row studios and he merged them all together.
Yeah, 6 of them. The 2 main ones that he was after, though, were Mascot and Monogram. And he had a game plan. The reason that he wanted to combine with these 2 was because Mascot was known for making serials. They were the first to do a sound serial,
That's
right?
right.
It was King of the Congo, 1929.
Right. And they had figured out how to maximize profits with serial shooting. And I guess we should really start and tell what a serial is.
Yeah, let's do that.
So serials were also called chapter plays, and this was to become the bread and butter for Republic Pictures. And these were weekly episodic cliffhangers that appealed mostly to younger boys, and they featured heroic characters in action-packed pulp storylines. And the thing that Mascot had figured out with the serial business was how to save money by shooting scenes by location. So instead of shooting by script order and shooting each chapter one at a time,
the location appeared in episode 1 and then again
6,
in episode 4. Yeah. So
they would shoot all of those at the same time. And while this would cause major confusion for the actors,
right. Most of the actors said they didn't know what was going on from day to day. Yeah, they just kind of showed up and did what the director told them to do.
Yeah, this saved a lot of money for the studios. Herbert Yates was really interested in this production style, so this is one of the reasons why he was interested in
the process. And then Monogram, they had a series of film exchanges all across the country. So
what does that mean?
That was his distribution network. They had set up, in major cities, and they would send their serials to the major cities and they would distribute to local theaters. And so by acquiring both Mascot and Monogram, he had both the means of production and distribution.
What I love about Republic was that Herbert Yates wasn't after the majors. By combining all of the Poverty Row studios, he wasn't trying to become a major.
What was his saying? Quality at a budget.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to be a major. And even though they got the nickname Repulsive Pictures, he didn't care.
Yeah. No,
that didn't bother him.
Yeah, it didn't matter as long as he was financially, making money on it.
And I really respect that, and I love that. And I love the stuff that Republic Pictures did. They did what they did well.
Yeah, they did. Absolutely.
And I love that we own the catalog at Paramount. It's such a joy to work on, I have to say. So,
well, I mean, there's some gems in there. There really is.
There are tons of gems, and a lot of that is due to the Lydeckers. What a segue is that? Usually at this point, I would tell you, let's not spend too much time on their origin story. I know you love a good origin story, Mr. Comic Book over here. But
they had a very unconventional upbringing, and I think that kind of led to their prowess in their fields.
Yeah.
Theodore Lydecker was born in Inglewood, New Jersey in 1908. But shortly after his birth, his father, John Howard Lydecker, moved the family to Havana, Cuba, for a job that he got as head engineer overseeing the raising and restoration of the battleship Maine.
Nice. His father was a restorationist. I like that.
Yeah. An engineer restorationist.
Hey, restorationist is a restorationist.
So while in Cuba in 1911, his younger brother, Howard Babe Lydecker, was born. Shortly after Babe's birth, John Howard moved the family to Balboa, California, where he applied his engineering skills to the construction of tuna boats and the design of mini golf courses.
So random.
Well, like most people in California, he eventually found himself in the movies. John Howard found his way into the movies, serving as an assistant art director to William Cameron Menzies on films like Douglas Fairbanks' Thief of Baghdad. He's also purported to have worked on the 1925 version of Phantom of the Opera for Universal, and this is where the brothers got their bug for movie making. Upon completing high school, Babe went to work immediately for Max Sennett Studios. The two brothers ended up working for United and Tiffany Stahl, and then when sound came in, they recorded sound effects for all the majors like Paramount, MGM, Columbia, and Fox. And they only made $1 a day doing that. They would go all around recording sounds for their sound libraries because everybody had to build up sound libraries. Well, Ted got fed up with this. And Ted was always kind of an outdoorsman. And he said, well, if I'm only going to make $1 a day, then I'm going to go off to Idaho and become a cowboy because at least I'll be making $1 a day there, but I also get room and board and food for free.
Well, I got to tell you, I've read a lot of interesting stories about soundmen during the early sound era days, recording sounds to build these sound effects libraries. And I can understand how it could have been stressful because there were a couple stories where soundmen were trying to find sounds for buffalo or hyena sounds. And
exotic animals at the time,
yes.
right?
Yeah. And they would get so frustrated at the writers because they would say, all these writers have to do is say that there's a sound of a buffalo. But we in Los Angeles, we have to go find a buffalo sound. Do you know how hard it is to find a buffalo in Los Angeles? I can't just go down to Hollywood and Vine and find a buffalo. I got to go up to, wherever, and then I have to find a buffalo, and then I have to wait for it to make a sound. But I digress. I can imagine how it could be very frustrating trying to get some sounds for $1 a day, which was probably like $20.
Yeah,
$20 a day
I think
so.
we did the math on that one, and it's like $20.
We did the math.
Yeah, but Babe decided to grind it out here in town, and eventually he found himself at Mascot, and he got to work with this very famous guy, Larry Wickland. Larry Wickland had done miniatures and miniature effects for major studios. Then he came over to Mascot to become the department head of their special effects department. So Babe saw an opportunity here, and he decided to call his brother Ted back, and he said, look, we can learn under this guy, and we're doing some really, really cool stuff. So when Republic was formed, they were already part of Mascot, and they kind of came with the deal. John Coyle was another guy that they worked under. So they learned from these two old masters who taught them everything they knew, and they just, they sucked it up like sponges. Shortly after the formation of Republic in 35, John Coyle steps down as the head of the special effects department at Republic, and then Babe takes over. Howard does. That's how they became the heads of the special effects department. So the Lydecker brothers' responsibilities as the special effects department were really large. They encompassed a lot of stuff. And here, I'm just going to read this. They were responsible for 9 optical areas, inserts. So like if someone pushes a button, like this is photographic stuff. They were responsible for the main titles. They were responsible for added shots. So they would do an edit and then see that they needed something.
Something was missing.
Yep. So they would just call on the brothers to go out and shoot it. They were responsible for the construction of all props for process shots. They were responsible for the gun room, mats and glass shots, special effects shots, which included all fire, water, rain, snow, smoke, and underwater setups, and of course, miniatures. So basically, pretty much everything that wasn't main unit. So the way the guys worked together, they would conceptualize what they needed, and then Ted would go off and draft the plans. He would oversee the construction or any rigging that needed to be done, and then Howard would be the guy that goes out and actually shoots it. He was the guy that was really into cinematography. And they lived by several rules. The first one was build large. Miniatures was kind of a misnomer for what they were doing. What they did was scale models. The larger you built it, the more realistic the light would be on it. So the closer you could come to the actual size of the object that you're shooting, the more natural it would seem on screen. 2, photograph from every possible angle. You and I were discussing this yesterday. Mm-hmm. And you were like, well, Republic is building a stock library at the time, right?
Yeah, they reuse a lot of this stuff. So my theory was, well, they're shooting it so that they can reuse it in other features and other serials and stuff like that.
Right. I could definitely see Herbert J. Yates going, well, if I gave you the money to build it, then you shoot the heck out of this thing before you blow it up.
Yeah, we need a plane. We needed flying west, east, north, south,
up, down,
yeah, every way.
Crashing, launching, anything you can get.
Everything. Yeah.
Before you blow it up.
That was my theory because when I asked you, I said, do you know why they said that? And that was my theory.
Right. Number 3, always use natural light. This one kind of goes with their next rule. Number 4, photograph against real location backdrops. when you're trying to make something seem real, you put it against a real environment, and then the viewer's brain kind of fills it in. They take it as real, you know? But it's also got the natural light showing natural shadows, and the more of that naturalness that you have, the more realistic it seems to the viewer. And then the last one they did was photograph at high speed. So Babe had a chart that he made. He would vary the speed relative to the size of the object so that when it played back at 24 frames, it would have mass and size. And I think this is illustrative of their very scientific approach to this, you know. They were like, well, you know, this is our profession. We want to do this the best we can. So let's come up with the methods that work the best, you know? So we've talked about the way the brothers worked and how they did some of the stuff that they did and kind of their rules of thumb while shooting. Let's talk about some specifics, some like actual things that they shot.
Yeah.
Like serials, like, you know?
I mean, serials, I think, are some of the best showcases of what they did, because in one serial, you get so many awesome things.
Right.
Because you've got 12 to 15 chapters, depending on the serial, and each one of them has a cliffhanger, except for the last one.
Yeah, they were basically just show reels for these guys, right?
Yeah.
That's why everybody really associates the Lydeckers with serials, even though they did a lot more than that. But
they did.
Yeah.
But.
So serials, one of my favorites is Daredevils of the Red Circle.
Yes.
I think it's a great showcase for their work. That first episode has not one, but two massive set pieces in it.
Yes, it starts and ends with a big set piece.
Yeah.
Not only do you have incredible effects that are in that, you also have incredible actors who are in that. You have a stuntman and an incredible athlete.
Right.
To work around all the stunt work that you're seeing in this one.
It's about three brothers that are in the circus, and they get kind of pulled into this plot by this arch villain. He's mad because he went to jail and he escaped.
Like you do.
Yeah, and he escaped, and he's impersonating a guy that owns a lot of properties, and he's destroying these properties one by one. And these guys get kind of pulled into it, the Daredevils.
Yeah, and then of course the end sequence, which I think is incredible and holds up spectacularly well.
Well, also this was directed by William Whitney, one of our favorite directors of the serials.
Yeah,
very, very prolific director, and you know it's a William Whitney serial when you see it, right?
Yeah.
So you know what? I actually have a quote about Daredevils of the Red Circle from William Whitney out of his book that I'd like to read real quick. We talked for 2 hours and set down on paper what we would shoot and what Babe would shoot. We had to find a tunnel with a curve in it so you couldn't see the other end. Babe would match that tunnel in miniature for the tunnel collapsing and the water flooding it. He would shoot a moving process plate of the water chasing the camera down the tunnel so we could put our lead on the motorcycle in front of the process screen. We'd also shoot the run-throughs of the motorcycle in the real tunnel. Babe would shoot the watertight doors closing to stop the water so we could put our set in front of it with the lead spinning a big wheel to close the doors. Now all we had to do was find a tunnel with enough curve in it so we couldn't see the other end.
This scene holds up really well. It's hard to tell the miniatures from the real tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, the Lydeckers did such a great job building that tunnel. It's exact. It's an exact replica.
Yeah.
And even the traveling mat, the process shot is really well done.
Yeah.
Especially for the time period.
Yeah.
And your guy, David Sharp, does some really awesome moves. Like, even when he's just fighting somebody, he does all these crazy flips.
Yeah.
There's one where he, like, flips over and knock him down. It's so cool.
Oh, yeah, he's really good at that.
So cool.
Yeah. There's another stunt he does, does a backflip and kicks two guys out at the same time.
So cool.
So cool.
So cool.
Who does that?
So, Charlotte, are you working on any serials right now at Paramount?
Yeah, we're actually working on two different ones. We're working on the two oldest ones, Darkest Africa and Undersea Kingdom. I did want to talk about an interesting thing with some of the serials that happened in the 50s, though. In the 1950s, demand for serials declined because of television.
Right.
Because they were episodic, and these were kind of like what you were seeing on TV. So the demand for them went down, but production costs were rising. But Republic still wanted to produce serials. So they came up with an idea to still produce serials, but to keep the cost down. And that was, they asked the writers to look at serials that had already been produced and look for set pieces, action sequences, things like that had already happened that they could then work into storylines and reuse them. So they reused all of these things that had happened in previous serials and then put them with new heroes and new stars. So there's a few examples I can give you. There's a serial called G-Men versus the Black Dragon, and there's a couple sequences where you see the bad guys chasing the good guys, and these sequences are reused in the serial Flying Discmen from Mars. And all they did was switch out the good guys and the bad guys.
Yeah.
You know, if you'd only seen it once in a theater 10 years ago, you weren't going to really remember that.
Recognize it, yeah.
That maybe that looks a little familiar, but it's got new stars and new stuff. And look, it was basically stock footage, right? So I don't knock them for doing that.
No,
I
not
think
at
that
all.
was actually really smart of them to do that.
Well, they were always looking for ways to turn an extra buck like that. So they would do the serial would come out, and then they would edit that serial into a feature and then release it under a different name.
Yep.
Like Darkest Africa is called Darkest Africa, but it's also called King of Jungleland. And then later that was called Batman of Africa.
And just imagine from an archival standpoint, you got stuff under all kinds of different titles
Right.
sometimes. So
Also, I want to talk about some of Howard's accolades. Howard was nominated
Babe.
for Babe. Yep, Babe.
Babe's accolades.
Babe. Babe was nominated for 2 Academy Awards. The first one was for Women in War, 1940. In that one, they tilted the miniatures sideways and placed a camera above them. And so that when an explosion went off, it rose like an explosion actually does, but it looked like it was spreading laterally instead of going up. The other film that Howard got nominated for while he was at Republic was Flying Tigers, 1942. In this one, they got nominated because of all of the special effects that they did with the planes. They built these models of Tomahawk, P-40 Tomahawk planes. And this is interesting. They got invited by the government. These were prototype planes at the time. They got invited by the government to come look at the planes so that they could replicate them. But one of the rules was that they couldn't replicate the inside. They had to fabricate their own insides so that they didn't give away any war secrets. They did not only models that they strung up on these elaborate lines, they also built full-size replicas on the ground that didn't fly. Really impressive work for this film. So in late 1950, Herbert J. Yates couldn't afford full-time staff anymore at Republic, so he let the Lydeckers go. But this wasn't a bad thing for the Lydeckers because they'd made such a big name, 2-time Academy Award nominees, all their work in the serials that everybody had seen was very, very popular. So they became the hottest freelancers on the market at the time. And the only problem was that they had to split up. They could no longer be a team. So Theodore ended up going straight to Disney, but he didn't like it there. He didn't like the culture of Disney. So he ended up at Universal, where he ended up doing the miniature birds for Hitchcock's The Birds.
That's really cool.
And of course, Theodore saw this as a job. And so the moment that he could actually retire, he ended up retiring. The real drive was, working with his brother as a duo. But his son ended up making films when he was a kid. And so he came home one day from work, before he retired. And he saw them like attempting to blow models up for their mini epics that they were shooting on Super 8 at the time. And he's like, whoa, you guys, you need to calm down. Let a professional do this. because he didn't want to blow any fingers off or anything like that. So
it's a safety thing.
And, you know, when your dad is like one of the best guys in town, you let your dad do it. Yeah. So he got really involved in making their home movies. He would build models with them, show them all the techniques for scale. And then, you know, he would do, of course, all the pyro stuff for it. And they would just blow up. So their mini epics were like big hits in the neighborhood. All the kids loved watching their films.
So cool.
And they all came involved. And they all loved Theodore because he was, you know, the cool dad that came and helped them with their big features on weekends. Howard went to work for 20th Century Fox. One of the biggest producers he worked for was Irwin Allen, who would go on to do Earthquake and Poseidon Adventure, you know, a lot of very towering Inferno, right?
Yeah.
But he started on TV shows like Lost in Space and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and both of those are shows that Howard ended up working on. A lot of miniature work on those. So, in fact, it was TV that gave Howard his first win. He won an Emmy in 1966 for individual achievement in cinematography for Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Finally got that win.
Very cool.
You know, Howard tried to get Theodore out of retirement several times, but, you know, Theodore was having way too much fun
entertaining
the neighborhood and, you know, going off on fishing expeditions to go back to work. He said it would just be too much work to go back to work. Howard, on the other hand, was like, he, you know, had the drive. In 1968, Howard suffered an aneurysm, but he bounced back and he went to work on Tora, Tora, Tora. Tora, Tora, Tora didn't come out till 1970, but he worked on that up until the day he suffered a fatal heart attack in 1969. That's how dedicated he was to his work. He was 58. In 1974, Universal tried to get Theodore out of retirement again for Earthquake, another Irwin Allen film, of course.
Yeah, but if Babe couldn't get him out of retirement,
Universal's certainly not going to do it, right?
No.
Yeah. If his brother couldn't do it, Universal's not going to do it.
Yeah.
Theodore continued to enjoy hunting and fishing until 1990 when he passed away. This is a quote from Theodore during his retirement, but he was looking back on his career. Theodore says, "My business was the most fantastic there was. Everything was new every day. You were in your own little world of explosions and miniature cars and planes. People don't understand or realize what we did, Howard and I. It was kind of like Walt Disney when he first started. Everything you did was your own way. I wish we could do that kind of stuff today. It was wonderful and nerve-wracking. We worked on a weekly schedule for serials. The miniatures and climaxes were all done at the last minute. We never got a complete script in advance. We would make up a budget, but there were always changes. On features, the effects were always done after the picture was completed. Daredevils of the Red Circle is one serial that stands out in my mind. I'll never forget it. Dave Sharp was fantastic." I mean, these guys were guys of few words. They were great technicians, but it was a job. So, Charlotte, let me ask you a question. While you've worked on a lot of these Lydecker films, what are some of the takeaways that you have? What are the things that, you know, you've learned handling these films?
Well, as we've teased at the beginning, there are things that I've learned, but they're not really restoration-y things. They're more life lessons.
Oh, these are things that we should all listen to because, you know, we need to take these to heart.
There are. And I felt so strongly about them that I cut a reel together that I would like to share with all of you. the guy driving the car, that's actor Walter Reed. And I'm serious when I say you cannot let him drive. And it's not just a car that you can't let him drive. You can't let him drive an airplane. I mean, if he's in if he's in a cockpit, like get out of the plane immediately. If you see
pretty much if you see him in any position where you don't have control and he does.
Yeah, like if you see him on a railway car, I mean, get off of the railway. He can't even be trusted with that. I mean, it's just there's fire, there's explosives. I mean, danger just gets in his way at all times. Every
he can't
time.
Shoot a gun. It always jams
the
on
gun
him.
is out of bullets every time. I don't understand what is wrong with him. I mean,
Poor guy is just cursed. He's cursed.
He's cursed. There's this one movie that I was watching once called Angel on the Amazon, and I was pretty excited to see his name pop up in the credits. Was then followed by Howard and Theodore Lydecker. So, of course, I was extra excited because, hey, man, I got the Lydeckers coming up. So the movie starts, and Walter Reed is standing with a group of people, and they're all leaning against this plane. And thinking to myself, man, I sure hope Walter Reed's not the pilot of that plane. and then everybody gets on the plane, and then it shows the plane flying, and it's this cool little miniature by the Lydeckers, and then it starts showing all the people on the plane, and then there's two people playing cards, and neither one of them's Walter Reed, and then it shows a guy, nerdy guy with a magnifying glass is also a passenger, also not Walter Reed, and then who pops out of the cockpit? It's freaking Walter Reed is the co-pilot of the plane. This plane is doomed. And of course, the plane is freaking doomed. It is. But luckily, he's only the co-pilot of the plane. So there's actually a pilot. So the plane actually does land, thankfully, but it's actually a pretty cool crash because yes, it does crash because he is in the cockpit, so it crashes.
Had he been the solo pilot, the thing would have exploded.
Oh, it would have
for no
crashed.
reason.
It would. Oh yeah, it probably would.
It would just blown up.
Oh, because that does happen. there is a serial where he is in the cockpit and he's crashing towards a bridge, and you think, wait, is he going to crash into a bridge? But then somehow he ends up crashing into another plane midair. I mean, who does that? But no, they end up landing the plane thanks to the other pilot, of course. But it's a pretty cool crash.
Yeah, good
sequence.
Good crash.
Yeah, thanks to the Lydeckers.
Yeah.
Another thing that's not in that reel that you just watched is that if you see William Whitney's name as the director of whatever you're watching, you are guaranteed to see an entire set be destroyed in the film or the serial, whatever you're watching.
Yeah, if there is an object in the room, it will get crushed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or thrown or
I don't know
fallen
what
on.
Or William Whitney loves to destroy everything in a room. I mean,
can you imagine the set dressers? They're just like, oh, no.
I don't know what it is. He just destroys everything in his path. I can only imagine Herbert J. Yates coming on this set going, what the hell have you done? So anyways, I don't know if that really answered your question. What have I learned?
Well, I feel like we've all had a learning moment here. I mean, many takeaways from this, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, sometimes what you learn isn't what you set out to learn, but you learn something on the way. And these are just some of the things I've learned.
So, Charlotte, why do you think that the Lydeckers aren't remembered along with like Harryhausen and those type of people?
I don't know, because they're not a big name. I mean, they're like I mean, day players is the wrong word, but they're behind the scenes guys. I mean,
yeah, but so was Ray Harryhausen. He was behind the scenes guy. I think it's because of the accessibility of their material.
That's probably a big thing.
Yeah,
right?
I think because it was Republic Pictures and they were B movies, they're not as curated or taken care of.
Hey, don't say taken care of. We take care of them.
Until you guys got them. Hey.
We take really good care of them. Just because the people aren't seeing them doesn't mean they're not taken care of. You know that better than most.
Yes, yes. But I up until this point, right? They just weren't.
Watch him backpedal here. No, that's probably true. I mean, yeah. I mean, people will know because they don't see them. I mean, and they're just credits in a name, you know, in a credit crawl.
Serials are hard to find. They really are.
They're all over YouTube.
Yes, you can watch really crappy versions of them on YouTube for sure.
Can.
Why do we not see more of them? Why? I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to put you on the spot. Why do you think that we don't have access to the serials?
You do. They're on YouTube.
That's all you're saying? Okay.
Look, as I've said before, commenters, we just restore them. We don't release them. That's another department.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of Republic pictures out there, and Lydeckers are all over those. So.
Yep.
Yeah. So they're, it's out there.
Just check out their name. They're in the credits. They're on almost every Republic Pictures film that you can see. So just another name in the credits. And that's kind of the thing that we like to point out here. We like to point out names that you see in the credits that maybe you never really looked at or thought much about before. I mean, for people that watch this podcast, how many times now have you seen Natalie Kalmus's name in the credits and thought, hey, I know all about her
or
now.
The Westmores.
Or the Westmores.
Yeah.
You've seen Wally Westmore's name and you thought, hey, I bet he's not even on set this time.
And you'd be right.
And you're probably right. I mean, these are the kind of people we'd like to highlight here. And you'll probably see the Lydeckers' name, Howard and Theodore, all the time now if you're going to watch a Republic Pictures movie. Because their name is almost always there. And these are the kind of people we like to highlight. And you'll notice them now. Yeah,
and I think, their legacy is important. George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, big filmmakers like that were influenced by the serials. Yeah. So the Lydeckers should be there on your Mount Rushmore of practical effects.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with Willis O'Brien and right between Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen, I think, right?
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Absolutely should. Babe and Theodore.
Babe and Theodore right there.
Yep. Hope you've enjoyed learning about the Lydeckers and a lot about Republic. We ended up talking a lot about Republic, but it's hard to talk about Lydeckers and not talk Republic Pictures.
Yeah, I mean,
because they were so
linked together for so long.
Yeah, because the Lydeckers elevated Republic, and Republic wouldn't be Republic without Lydeckers.
Without their work, absolutely.
Yeah.
So until next time, thanks for joining us here
on
Perf Damage. So here's another little interesting fact. The Lydeckers created an octopus for the 1948 film Wake of the Red Witch that John Wayne ends up battling in that movie. That was in the Republic props department and was stolen in 1954 by Ed Wood for Bride of the Monster.
Did they give it back?
7 years later. No, it never got back to them. Isn't that funny?
No.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
It is kind of funny.